Thank you for watching NMH at 1, where we highlight pertinent news and current affairs, community stories from across Namibia, as well as international headlines.
Now here's what you can expect in this lunch hour. Heavy rain causes flooding and damage to property. I was used, says Fishrot accused Bernard Esau. The Pupkewitz Open Championships are underway.
Stay with NMH at 1. Economic news, sports updates and international headlines coming your way, read to you by Aina Koyo and Diana Master.
In today's midday news update, due to recent rainfall experienced in Rundu, the roads of the town have been filled with water from the storm, which is a headache for motorists who have to endure the potholes. The gravel roads in the town were last maintained last year. However, prior to this current rainy season, there has been no rehabilitation of the roads. Attempts to get comment from council over the matter proved futile. Meanwhile, in Windhoek, heavy rains experienced yesterday afternoon have caused massive flooding of roads, homes and shopping centres. Shop assistants at Vernhill Mall have been working since last night to sweep up water after the flash floods hit Windhoek yesterday. The management of the shopping centre said they will issue a comprehensive statement on the extent of damage and related matters this afternoon. The lower floor is currently closed to the public until the cleanup process is finished by either this afternoon or tomorrow morning.
Leave us a comment on our social media platforms to engage with these stories. Visual news coming up after the break.
In Business 7, you get news on current economic, financial and business matters in Namibia. The weekly show features interviews with experts and in-depth analysis of burning issues in a way that caters for ordinary Namibians and business connoisseurs alike. For news-related or advertising queries, please contact B7 at synergy.com.na.
Starting off our visual news this afternoon, National Council member Emma Muteka says the introduction of an e-parliament will improve effectiveness in the Namibian parliaments. She was speaking at the launch of the e-parliament strategy launch. Let's have a look.
Parliaments in both developed and developing countries around the world have reached the stage of embracing the use of modern technology in the form of e-parliament systems. This stage of changing from conventional systems of doing parliamentary business to digital work is inevitable. The implementation methodologies of ICT in Parliament is not just about introducing a few electronic mechanisms and using email, but it is also about changes in procedures and cultures. Therefore, a tailor-made change management system should prioritize alongside the implementation of ICT infrastructure. The official launch of this e-parliament strategy is an indicator that it is appealing to us that Parliament of Namibia has the past question whether the use of the modern ICT systems at Parliament is needed or not.
The Pupkewitz Open Championship is currently taking place at the Fenita Sports Field in Swakopmund. Watch Danny Damon, a javelin coach from South Africa, what he has to say about the development program.
Well, we're reporting to you live here from Swakopmund. I am joined by Danny, all the way from Stellenbosch. Danny, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm feeling great.
Danny, yesterday you guys had the training day that was going on. Tell me, how was the training day yesterday?
It was actually for 2 days and the training was absolutely fantastic. There's so much talent and I can actually see there's a hunger for knowledge. So it was great to be here.
Okay, personally, I feel like our athletes should feel privileged to be in the presence of guys like you all the way from South Africa, carrying all the experience, bringing all the information that needs to be brought. How do you feel like our athletes adapted to what you guys had to teach?
Actually very good, because the fundamentals are fundamentals. So if you coach fundamentals, then the athletes can adapt quickly to that. You just need to build on the expertise that you have, and you have to give those expertise over to the athletes.
Speaking on response, how did the athletes respond to what you guys were giving, and the difference between how it's done here and how it's done in Stellenbosch? Can you tell me how much of a difference there is between what's happening here and what's happening there?
There's not much of a difference, because athletes are athletes. Throwing a javelin is throwing a javelin, you know. But obviously our athletes in Stellenbosch or in Cape Town, they have they start very early, so they have like an advantage on the athletes here. But with what we are doing here, and if this is an ongoing project, they will catch up easily. And look at what happened today with the javelin records in under 12 boys and girls. So they adapt and they learn quickly.
So as you can see, the training camp was actually a very, very good thing that happened here in Swakopmund. Well, we still have more interviews coming your way. I'm joined by Danny, all the way from Stellenbosch, that came to help out with javelin. Well, you guys should stay tuned.
After the break, we review pertinent stories from the country's daily newspapers. Stay with NMH at 1.
Hi Nangula, you look sad.
Hi Peter, I am sad because my parents argued about whether I should spend the weekend at my mom's or dad's place. When I asked them why my views were not considered, they told me it has nothing to do with me as I am too young.
That's a job for your cape of participation. It can fix that.
My cap of what?
Your rights. They're your superpowers. Your cape of participation is your right to participation. It means you have a right to participate in decisions which affect your life. You have a right to an opinion and to tell people your views in a respectful way.
For more information, contact the Children's Advocate Namibia in the Office of the Ombudsman on 061 20 73 111. Send us an SMS on 20401. SMS costs 40 cents. You can also send us a message via our Facebook page. Remember, the services of the Children's Advocate are free of charge.
Starting off the newspaper review, Namibian Sun reports that President Hage Geingob has changed his plan of quitting as SWAPO president before the 2024 general election after his recent remarks at Congress, including the possibility of an extraordinary Congress to endorse the party's candidate for that election, caused a stir. If Geingob pressed ahead with his plan to quit the party presidency before the 2024 general election, SWAPO might have been required to call an extraordinary Congress to elect its new president, who through the party's succession policy would then become its presidential candidate in the national election. Still at SWAPO, another story on the paper's front page reports that the recent SWAPO Congress has adopted a resolution ordering government to ensure veterans of the liberation struggle are paid all their outstanding monies before 2024. The directive is seen to be aimed at appeasing veterans who are at loggerheads with government over unpaid project monies ahead of the crunch 2024 general election. On Namibian Sun's page 4, the paper informs that while close to a quarter of the Namibian workforce is now employed in the agriculture sector, food insecurity levels in the country have doubled in 5 years. This is according to the Food and Agriculture Organization's annual statistical yearbook, which covers more than 245 countries and territories, including Namibia. In a separate report, reliable estimates place Africa's untapped total groundwater storage at 650 billion cubic meters, with a rate of 2% recharge every decade. Against this backdrop, Africa's groundwater resource potential is enough to assure water security and availability for most purposes.
Now, on Republicans' front page, it informs that lawyer of former Fisheries Minister Bernard Esau yesterday told the High Court that his client was not party to Fishrot crimes and that his name was opportunistically used by his co-accused in the bribery scandal. Richard Metcalfe also said his client was incriminated by association. The state does not have a strong case against the applicant, who's Esau, and he is being incriminated by association. Evidence will reveal that he has nothing to do with the offenses and he was being used by his co-accused, the lawyer said. Africans Daily's Republicans page 3 reports that government this week secured $2 billion Namibian in funding the rehabilitation of a road between Usakos and Karibib to upgrade Windhoek's portable reclamation plant and to fund the water sector support program. This was concluded this week following the signing of an agreement between Finance Minister Ipumbushimi and the German Development Bank's country director for Namibia, Beatrice Luke.
Moving over, the Allgemeine Zeitung today leads with the newest development whereby so-called wood vinegar is becoming the buzzword of the charcoal industry. Especially under the guidance of the Charcoal Association of Namibia, the producers have been busy trying to find solutions so as to exploit every bit of waste that occurs during the production of charcoal. While they have made big strides in the process, they have now been busy perfecting designs for condensers that allow producers to retain the distinctive and acrid smoke that we have all come to know. By cooling it down, the condensation process allows producers to further distillate the byproduct into items such as this acid type product, simply known as wood vinegar. It is environmentally friendly and it has many good uses, especially in the agricultural sector. On its page 3, the Allgemeine Zeitung gives an overall view of the US-Africa summit currently underway. The aim of the United States of America seems clear. China and Russia have been steadily expanding their influence on the African continent, with the US government having invited representatives of 49 African countries, including Namibia's President Dr. Hage Geingob and others of the African Union, to a summit in Washington. It seems clear that the US has decided to introduce its own countermeasures. That brings us to the end of the first half of our newspaper review. We start off the second half taking a look at what's leading on the Namibian front page.
Take a load off and tune into another episode of Brave Namibia as we take a look at both ordinary and extraordinary Namibians. Brave Namibia is broadcasted on NTV Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. and oneup2.com, as well as broadcasted on the following Facebook platforms on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Republican, Allgemeine Zeitung, Namibian Sun, and all Namibia Media Holdings pages. For more information, contact the Brave team at brave@synergy.com.na. Brave Namibia, for the ordinary and extraordinary Namibians.
The Namibian newspaper reports that a Namibian national, Bernard Esau, one of the suspects named in the scandal surrounding the theft of foreign currency from President Cyril Ramaphosa's Falafala farm 2 years ago, has been questioned by the South Africa's elite crime-fighting directorate, the Hawks. Shambwako was being held at the Pollsmoor prison on unrelated charges of reckless driving and possession of 12 firearms belonging to the Namibian police. In a separate story, former Fisheries and Marine Resources Minister Bernard Esau says he was used by some of his co-accused in the Fishrot fishing quota and corruption case, and he has evidence proving it. This is stated in a list of facts of which Esau is basing his latest application to be granted bail, which commenced before acting Judge David Munsu in the Windhoek High Court yesterday. The Namibian reports that the recent SWAPO Congress has directed the government to use the state-owned pension fund to build or buy houses for public servants, as well as people who do not work in the government. This directive is among the resolution taken by the ruling party's top leadership last week in Windhoek. The ruling party has been criticized for being too ambitious or lacking details on housing. Over 700 delegates decided last week to tap into the government institution pension fund resources to solve the housing crisis. On the same page, NamPower assures that Eskom's troubles will not affect Namibia.
According to New Era, SWAPO President Hage Geingob has thrown his weight behind his lieutenant Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah as the heir to his throne at national level, albeit holding onto the party presidency until his term lapses in November 2027. In a surprising turn of events, Geingob turned on his earlier decision to hand over the SWAPO presidency to Nandi-Ndaitwah ahead of the 2024 general elections, citing confusion within the party, adding that his bona fide gesture to step aside has been exploited by political opportunists. In a statement authored by the presidency yesterday, Geingob is backing Nandi-Ndaitwah as SWAPO's presidential candidate at the next elections, putting to bed perceptions that he does not support the international relations minister. On the paper's page 3, it is reported that the Namibia Bus and Taxi Association's long-standing internal conflict has led to its Secretary General Pendapala Nakatingo filing a $1.5 million Namibian defamation suit against the association's former president Vespa Munda. Nakatingo claims Munda, who was suspended in November 2016 alongside Lazarus Mata and Eliphas Kennedy Martin, had interviews with the media and sent out letters to former police chief Sebastian Deitunga and Motor Vehicle Accident Fund CEO Rosalia Martins Hausiku. The said letters, which were allegedly defamatory, were also sent to cabinet ministers Franz Kapofi, Erastus Utoni and Kalumbi Shangula. Nakatingo, who filed the suit in November, claims the interviews have misleading information and imply he had been suspended and that the title he holds is fake. Furthermore, he defrauded members of the public as well as buses and taxi operators of funds in his capacity as the association's fake Secretary General.
According to Market Watch, the Composite Mining Production Index, which consists of diamonds, gold, uranium and zinc, rebounded on a monthly basis, recording an increase of 1.8% in October 2022. And this is according to Namibia Statistic Agency. In the preceding month, the index recorded a contraction of 2.2%.
Now, President Hage Geingob has urged first world nations to direct their efforts towards funding green energy projects. We get into this economic news right after the break.
The My.NA Cars Show provides viewers with the best in-class cars content, engaging interviews, as well as a showcase of the latest cars-related news, products, and services. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact My.NA at synergy.com.na. My.NA Cars, more than just a ride.
Headlining economic news this afternoon, President Hage Geingob has urged first world nations to direct their efforts towards funding green energy projects to heed the outcomes of the 2015 Paris Agreement. The agreement set out a global framework to curtail the worst effects of climate change by limiting global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius while pursuing efforts to limit it to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Making a call for more financing, Geingob said Africa was bearing the brunt of climate change. Africa emits less carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, but is regrettably disproportionately affected by climate change and the long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. As a consequence, Namibia, for example, has experienced severe droughts in the past 5 years, of which one was recorded to have been the worst in a century, he said. Developed nations, the head of state said, should provide at least $100 billion a year from 2025. We are urging for the scaling up of the levels of climate finance by providing concrete long-term targets for climate finance pathways and accounting methodologies for the collective goal by developed countries to reach $100 billion a year from 2025 and beyond, he said on the sidelines of the US-Africa Summit currently underway in Washington, D.C. According to Geingob, proceeds from the global carbon market system set up under the Paris Agreement should go to the Adaptation Fund to finance projects and programs in developing countries.
Moving on to our next story, the state-owned company upon which Namibia has pinned its hope for a bright future in the petroleum market, NAMCO, recently announced another milestone in its quest to become a fully vertically integrated homegrown oil company. NAMCO lubricant specialist John Redman announced the introduction of NAMCO oil-based lubricants to the local market at a special function at the renowned Old Wheelers Club in the capital. Traditionally, it has been the upstream activities of NAMCO that have helped the trademark become a household name in Namibia, with significant recent success marked by its partnership with international oil majors in discovering oil deposit offshore. Recently, the organization has expanded into the downstream petroleum retail market and already has established 11 service stations around the country. Now, Redman says it will also be selling its own range of top quality lubricants at these service stations, and NAMCO has concluded agreements with Metro and other retailers who will start carrying the products in the months to come. NAMCO was also in the upstream business, prospecting oil drilling for crude oil because Namibia wants its own oil company. He explains the International Organization for Standardization certified blending plant has helped NAMCO develop a range of world-class oil-based lubricants, which it first brought to local mining market for trials. He elaborates.
Let's take a look at the economic indicators. The Namibian dollar value is down against most major currencies, with $1 now costing 17 Namibian dollars and 25 cents. First Rand Namibia Limited stocks rose to 32 Namibian dollars and 51 cents after a 0.01% increase in price. Other stock prices remain unchanged on the NSX, while local index has closed 0.02% higher. Looking at commodities, copper prices have climbed by 0.23%, while other commodity prices have dropped.
Liberia's largest prison, the Monrovia Central Prison, has begun turning away new inmates due to overcrowding. The full story after the break right here on NMH at 1.
Flex is your health and fitness show that focuses on the health of the mind, body and spirit. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na.
Here are the news from our African continent. Liberia's largest prison, the Monrovia Central Prison, has begun turning away new inmates due to overcrowding and fears of disease outbreak, the Justice Ministry and prison officials have said. The Justice Minister, Frank Musa Dina, told BBC that those being denied admission at the facility were inmates accused of minor offences. Where no damage was done or nobody was wounded, people arrested on minor charges are to instead be returned to communities and kept under the watch of community leaders, Master Dean said. It follows local media reports that prison guards were refusing to admit new inmates as part of an ongoing strike over a delay of salaries. Prison officials have denied the claims. The prison was built to hold around 300 inmates when the population of Monrovia was about 300,000 people. It now holds over 1,600 inmates in the city of about 1.5 million people. Inmates at the facility include convicted for murderers and armed robberies. Of course, when there is an increase in population, correspondingly there is an increase in crime rate, Master Dean said, and there is a challenge. Engineers from the Ministry of Public Works are working on the blueprint to construct additional wings of the prison that will take up to 1,000 inmates, according to the Justice Minister.
In our next story, Nigeria and Rwanda became the first African countries to sign the Artemis Accords on Space Cooperation with the U.S. during the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit at the U.S.-Africa Space Forum in Washington, D.C. Nigeria's Communications and Digital Economy Minister Isa Ali Ibrahim represented Nigeria on Tuesday, while Rwanda Space Agency CEO Francis Ngabo represented Rwanda. The Artemis Accords signed by Rwanda and Nigeria are a set of principles to guide the next phase in space exploration, reinforcing and providing for important operational implementation of key obligations in the 1967 Outer Space Treaty. The U.S.-Africa Space Forum reaffirmed the U.S. commitment to collaborating with African partners on the peaceful use and exploration of outer space to meet shared priorities on Earth. It also seeks U.S.-Africa space partnership and cooperation for the possibilities and challenges of the 21st century. These include the global food, biodiversity and climate crises, responsible space travel, and enhancing U.S.-Africa scientific and commercial space cooperation.
Moving on to our next story, the International Criminal Court will decide today on an appeal by an Ugandan child soldier turned commander in the Lord's Resistance Army against his conviction and 25-year sentence of war crimes. Dominic Ogwen, who was abducted at age 9 by the rebel group led by the fugitive Joseph Kony, was found guilty last year of murder, rape and sexual enslavement in northern Uganda during the early 2000s. The LRA was founded 3 decades ago by former Catholic altar boy and self-styled prophet Joseph Kony, who launched a bloody rebellion in northern Uganda against President Yoweri Museveni. Judges will read the verdict from 10:30 GMT at the ICC's high security headquarters in Hague, where Ogwen's trial had started 6 years ago in what is expected to be a lengthy session. Defense lawyer argued earlier this year that Ogwen's conviction and sentence should be overturned as he had been scarred by his own experience as a child soldier. The LRA's bid to set up a stated based on the Bible's 10 Commandments killed more than 100,000 people and saw 60,000 children abducted, spreading to Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Central African Republic. Ogwen, whose nom de guerre was White Ant, was found guilty on 61 charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity, which also included charges of himself turning young abductees into child soldiers.
Now, COVID-19 infections were exploding in China well before the government's decision to abandon its strict zero-COVID policy, a World Health Organization director said. We get into the international news coming up after the break.
Kletskompas is 'n Afrikaanse kontinuïteitsprogram met Namibiese nuus en onderhoude. As jy jou handelsmerk of veldtog op hierdie platform wil vertoon, kontak klets@synergy.com.na.
Starting off our international news, COVID-19 infections were exploding in China well before the government's decision to abandon its strict zero-COVID policy, a World Health Organization director said on Wednesday, quashing suggestions that the sudden reversal caused a spike in cases. The comments made by WHO's emergency director Mike Ryan came as he warned of the need to ramp up vaccinations in the world's #2 economy. Speaking at a briefing with media, he said the virus was spreading intensively in the nation long before the lifting of restrictions. The disease was spreading intensively because I believe the control measures in themselves were not stopping the disease, and I believe China decided strategically that was not the best option anymore. Beijing started pivoting away from its signature zero-COVID policy this month after protests against the economically damaging curbs championed by President Xi Jinping. The sudden loosening of restrictions has sparked long queues outside fever clinics in a worrying sign that a wave of infections is building, even though official tallies of new cases have trended lower recently as authorities eased back on testing. In its most recent COVID report for the week to November 27, the WHO said China had reported increasing hospitalizations for 4 consecutive weeks.
Moving on to our next story, U.S. President Joe Biden has announced billions of dollars in new funding for Africa at a summit of dozens of continents' heads of state. The United States is all in on Africa's future, President Biden told the 49 leaders attending the Washington, D.C. summit. It is the first such gathering hosted by Washington for 8 years. The summit is seen as a U.S. attempt to reassert its influence in Africa to counter Chinese involvement. It also comes after Donald Trump's 4-year tenure in office, during which he isolated numerous African leaders with policy decision and insulting comments. Mr. Biden struck a different tone from the former president, speaking optimistically of improved links with Africa and telling the gathering that when Africa succeeds, the United States succeeds. Quite frankly, the whole world succeeds. To that end, Mr. Biden announced $55 billion of the U.S. funding planned for Africa over the next 3 years. The sum includes $100 million for the clean energy projects and $350 million for internet access and digital technology.
Stick around. After the break, we get into our local sports news.
In the Orongo region. For news-related or advertising queries, contact Irongo Talk at synergy.com.na. Irongo Talk, our community, your news.
Let's get into our local sports news. Known for entertaining visitors to the coast during festive seasons, Bank Vintage will host a coastal summer festival which started on Tuesday and will run until Sunday.
One of Namibia's most gifted sprinters, Sade De Sousa, continues to relish in her win. Recently, she clocked a remarkable time of 7.43 seconds in the women's 60 meters indoor race in the American circuit. De Sousa, who studies and competes for the Jefferson City-based Carson Newman University in tennis, participated in the Boss Kriege Invitational held in Virginia.
Namibian athlete Benjamin Hendricks broke the championship's record of 1.85 meters at the Pupkewitz Open Athletics Championships in the under-15 age group. Today he broke the previous record as well as his personal record, and now his new record stands at 1.95 meters. After the break, we get into our international sports news, starting off with the World Cup results. They say all good things must come to an end, and no truer words have been said. The World Cup journey has been quite an emotional one, as we've watched some of the best players in the world say goodbye to a chance to lift the coveted trophy, and now the creme de la creme battle it out for World Cup glory. Let's take a look at the results from yesterday's game. The odds were never in Morocco's favor to begin with data predicting only a 13% win probability for the only African team to ever make it to the semi-finals. Could that have gotten into their heads and distracted them? Maybe. Well, only 5 minutes into the game, Theo Hernandez gave France the lead, and Randall Kolo Muani's goal 44 seconds after coming off the bench helped secure a 2-0 victory over Morocco, sending Le Bleu to the finals to face off with Argentina. Will it be 2 times the luck for the defending champions, or will Messi, who gets to close off his World Cup career with a bang? We'll find out this Sunday at 5 p.m. Now for the rest of the sports news. Manager Erik ten Hag said the Glazer family's decision to explore a sale of Manchester United could be a good thing, and that he has been reassured any change in ownership would not impact the objectives, goals and culture of the club.
Cristiano Ronaldo without a team and nursing the wounds of Portugal's shock World Cup exit has been training at Real Madrid while staying in the Spanish capital, the club said on Wednesday.
The end of the fantastic World Cup in Qatar this Sunday means the return of top-flight football across the world in the festive season, and there are no shortage of heavyweight clashes to kickstart the new year.
If you're just joining us, this is NMH at 1. We'll be right back to get into the highlights from today's broadcast. Stay with us.
The Evening Review is a daily interview-based talk show that dissects and expounds on current affairs as they occur in Namibia. The show aims at reaching Namibians of all age groups who seek better understanding of the state of current affairs in the country. This show is broadcasted on NTV, 1up2.com, and cross-shared on the following Facebook platforms: Namibian Sun and Namibia Media Holdings. The Evening Review focuses on interviews, latest news, and up-to-the-minute current events. Contact Evening at synergy.com.na. Evening Review, unpacking today's pertinent issues.
You're watching NMH at 1, and if you're just joining us, let's have a look at the highlights. Liberia's largest prison, the Monrovia Central Prison, has begun turning away new inmates due to overcrowding and fears of disease outbreak, the Justice Ministry and prison officials have said. COVID-19 infections were exploding in China well before the government's decision to abandon its strict zero-COVID policy, a World Health Organization director said on Wednesday, quashing suggestions that the sudden reversal caused a spike in cases. In sport, known for entertaining visitors to the coast during festive seasons, Bank Windhoek will host a coastal summer festival, which started on Tuesday and will run until Sunday.
Those have been your highlights. Remember to tune in every weekday at 1 p.m. to spend your lunch hour with NMH at 1, catching up on the latest news in Namibia, Africa, and the rest of the world, ranging from current affairs, economic news, sports, and international headlines. That is all from all of us here in studio, but don't go anywhere, because up next after is We Talk, and after that we cross over to a live broadcast in Swakopmund, where the Pupkewitz Open Championships are currently taking place, bringing you all the live action.
3, 2, 1. Here we go!
Hallo en welkom by die laaste episode van We Talk vir 2022. In vandag se episode gesels ons met die welbekende plaaslike kunstenaar Von Arends. Hy vertel vir ons 'n bietjie meer van homself en hy praat natuurlik ook oor sy nuutste album wat onlangs vrygestel is. Daarna beveel Jolanda 'n boek aan genaamd Die Wysheid van Zanibeer en sy gesels ook met die skrywer Irene Nel. Ons vertel ook vir julle waarna julle alles kan uitsien op die vermaaklikheidsfront en ek deel met julle 'n paar wenke om julle Kersfees selfs nog soeter te maak. Maar eers gesels ons oor vandag se nuus. Die Windhoek Express webblad kan julle vandag meer lees oor die King Nahale Lodge wat die afgelope naweek geopen is. Die spesiale geleentheid was aangebied deur Gondwana Collection Namibia en die eregas was koning Philemon Shumba Nangolo van die Ondangwa Nasionale Owerheid. Die tema van die aand was A Night with the King. Die nuwe lodge is geleë in die King Nahale Nasionale Bewaringsgebied net noord van Etosha Nasionale Park. Die oprig van die lodge moes glo reeds in Mei 2020 voltooi word, maar was uitgestel as gevolg van die COVID-19 pandemie. Gondwana Collection Namibia se stigter en bemarkingsdirekteur Manfred Goldbeck het tydens die opening aangekondig dat al die naweek se kamerfooie geskenk sal word aan die Impala Trust Fund. Die skenkings sal aangewend word vir die konstruksie van die Gondwana House, wat gebruik sal word as die koning se suite. Die minister van toerisme, Pohamba Shifeta, die voorsitter van die Ondangwa tradisionele owerheid, John Balenga, en vele ander prominente figure het die opening van die lodge bygewoon. Nog 'n lekker artikel is die rubriek van Eddie King van Bank Windhoek, wat vir jou vertel hoe om 'n goeie gelddenkwyse te ontwikkel. Volgens hom is een van die belangrikste maniere om jou finansiële welstand te ontwikkel, is deur 'n goeie gelddenkwyse. Dit beteken om realistiese verwagtinge te hê as dit kom by jou finansies en om te besef dat jy nie 'n beperkte hoeveelheid het nie. Mens moet bereid wees en die kennis hê oor hoe om jou geld te spaar en doeltreffend te belê. Om 'n goeie gelddenkwyse te ontwikkel kan jou help om sterker persoonlike finansiële gewoontes aan te leer, meer finansiële standvastigheid te skep en jouself beter toegerus te laat voel oor hoe jy jou finansies moet hanteer. Hier is 4 maniere hoe om 'n goeie gelddenkwyse te ontwikkel. 1. Besef dat niemand 'n onbeperkte hoeveelheid geld het nie. Dit kan onrealistiese verwagtinge skep. 2. Wees eerlik met jouself oor jou uitgegee gewoontes en indien jy onnodig geld uitgee, is dit tyd vir 'n verandering. Besef dat groei 'n aanhoudende proses is. Dit is belangrik om gemotiveerd te bly en haalbare doelwitte te stel sodat jy op koers kan bly. En laastens nommer 4, benut bekostigbare spaartegnieke. Dit kan behaal word deur 'n spaarrekening te maak of gereeld geld in 'n beleggingsfonds in te betaal. Dit is noodsaaklik om te onthou dat persoonlike finansies nie 'n eenmalige poging is nie. Dit verg deurlopende waaksaamheid en toewyding om jou finansiële doelwitte te bereik. Volgens Eddie King moet jy nie moedeloos raak wanneer jy 'n paar foutjies gemaak het nie, leer eerder uit daai foute en bly op die pad na die verkryging van rykdom en sekuriteit. Volgende is 'n baie inspirerende storie deur Henriette Lamprecht oor 'n jong man van Tsumeb wat die hitte en die grondpaaie na die kus aanpak om bewusmaking te skep van depressie onder mans. Die 23-jarige Alex Gous wil met sy epiese staptog die boodskap aan mans bring dat dit nie 'n swakheid is om oor jou gevoelens te praat nie en dat dit soveel beter vir jouself en die om jou is om die donkerte te deel. Volgens Alex moet mans weet hulle het ook 'n stem en dit maak jou nie minder man as jy oor jou gevoelens praat nie. As jy alles binnehou, het dit 'n invloed op jou en die mense naaste aan jou. Hy self sukkel nie met depressie nie en hy is gelukkig dat hy met sy ouers oor alles kan praat. In sy vriendekring gesels hulle ook onder mekaar en probeer om eenmaal per maand ten minste die wat nie naby is nie te bel en te hoor hoe dit gaan. Alex se roete van so wat 620 km volg die agterpaaie van Tsumeb tot Otavi met die treinspoorpad, Oudtshoorn, Korrigas, Ois, Henties Baai tot by sy eindpunt Swakopmund. Die hoop is dat hy op Ou Kersdag op 24 Desember sy voete uiteindelik in die koue seewater kan laat rus. Alex, wat hom as dieselwerktuigkundige by die Namibiese Instituut vir Mynbou en Tegnologie wil bekwam, verklant dat die rugsak wat hy tydens sy staptog saam hom gaan dra, huisves 'n nuwe paar skoene en sokkies, eetgoed soos grondboontjies, water en natuurlik pleisters. Sy oefenprogram ter voorbereiding vir die lang tog het ingesluit dat sy pa Andries hom so 20-30 km buite die dorp aflaai en hy dan terugstap. Pa Andries is ook sy ondersteuningsstelsel met 'n kar wat spesiaal ingerig is waarin hulle kan slaap en rus. Danksy 'n fyn uitgewerkte roete en beplanning is pa en seun ook heeltyd in kontak met mekaar. Alex se avontuur kan gevolg word op Instagram by AlexFlexG99 of op Facebook onder Alex Gous. Alex se boodskap aan mans wat stry met die donkerte is om die eerste stap te neem en met iemand te praat eerder as om dit binne te hou. In ander nuus het Debmarine in Namibia toerusting ter waarde van $405,000 Namibiese dollar aan Atletiek Namibia geskenk. Die toerusting sluit in 'n elektroniese foto-finish stelsel wat tydens byeenkomste benut kan word. Dit is die eerste een in die land en Debmarine hoop dat die skenking vir Atletiek Namibia sal toerus om byeenkomste aan te bied wat vergelykbaar is met internasionale standaarde. Dit is al vir vandag se nuus. Nou vir ons onderhoud met Bon.
My name is Vaughan Orens. I'm a musician, producer, radio DJ. I like long walks on the beach. Just kidding. No, I do, but I mean, this isn't a dating video. And I currently live in Windhoek, Namibia. I grew up in Walvis Bay. I was born in Swakopmund. Born at a very, very young age as a baby, and grew up from there. From there on, it was quite hard. I moved into toddlerhood, which was an interesting twist for me. After that, I went adolescent for what felt like forever, skipped puberty, straight into adulthood, and here I am today on the deck talking to you. So I've always been a massive, well, I started off as a thespian, which is like an actor, for those of you who just went, oh, yeah, that's an actor. So I started off doing school productions and with acting classes and all that, until one day I had to do a musical, and then when I sang, everyone enjoyed it, semi. So my mother enrolled me into classical singing lessons, because that's what every 11-year-old wants to do, classical singing. So I got my grade 8, which is like a final grade you can do in classical singing. And then I went over into playing commercial music. I've been playing live since I was about 15. I'm almost 25 now, so almost 10 years in the industry. I just released a new album, so it's my second album. Music is a wonderful thing. It takes you all around the world if you're lucky enough. And I've toured everywhere from the north of Namibia all the way down to South Africa, the Western Cape and Gauteng. And just before the massive COVID pandemic, I actually toured in Germany and the Netherlands. Hopefully going to be back there soon. In the new year, I'll be going back to South Africa, and we'll be doing our first shows ever in Zimbabwe and Mozambique, which I'm very, very excited about. And so nailing myself down to a specific genre is very difficult, especially with my new album, because I was always kind of known as the singer-songwriter folk kind of guy, acoustic guitar, crying on the microphone kind of thing. But I've kind of evolved into form more of a producer role in my own music, to the sense that I kind of, make a lot of genres of music. And I think that's what keeps it exciting for me, my little ADHD brain, is to be able to have a blank canvas in front of me and be able to kind of do any genre I enjoy, and there's a lot of genres to enjoy. So I think my latest album is a testament to that. A little bit of everything. I think it makes the world go round. Music is a fickle thing. It can take you all the way up here, and it can drop you like on the curb. And it's important always to remember why you do what you do. If you're in it for the money, you're in the wrong industry. You should become like a doctor or something. If you want to be a musician long term, and it's weird talking as a musician that's long term, because I don't see myself being in the industry that long. Even I only kind of realize it now when we talked about how long I've been doing it. You need to have a love for it, otherwise it dies out pretty quickly. Doing a job that you don't enjoy, it's like killing your soul little bit until there's like just a husk of a human left. So music has taught me that you need to do what you love, because I can see myself doing this for the next 100 years, never mind 10 years. Namibia is probably one of the most interesting cultural phenomenons that I've come across. We have such a tiny little population, and there's so many talented people coming out of this tiny population in all aspects, and in sports, in culture, in academics. It's a very special country filled with a lot of special people. And in my industry specifically, there's a lot of young guys coming up now that I'm really excited about. It's very cool to see that there's a new generation coming in. I still see myself as a young guy in this industry, but it's cool to see even younger guys coming in, and that there is a sustainable future for musicians to kind of make a living here and to share their art with Namibia, and then further than that, the world. So in the next year, we'll be touring my new album. For the first about 4 months of the year, I won't be in this country I love so much. I'm finally going on honeymoon. I've been married for a couple of months. I'm finally going on honeymoon in January, which is the month I usually take off in so that I don't go crazy. In February, we're touring in the Western Cape. In March, we're doing our first shows in Zimbabwe. And then in April, we'll be playing in Mozambique for the first time. So for the first 4 months of next year, there is a lot of touring going on, a lot of new faces, hearing some new music. And then when I get back, I'll be focusing on my new project. So I've already started writing my new album, and a lot of it has been produced already. So I'm looking to start recording my new project close to the end of next year. So in my free time, used to, for about 20 years, I was in the gymnastics sphere, either as a gymnast or as a coach. And I retired as a 24-year-old, but I retired the other day, which is kind of bittersweet because it's been part of my life for as long as I can coherently remember. So it is quite a difficult situation to be in, but I do feel that it's time to put full focus on my music again. I definitely won't walk away from gymnastics forever, but I do have to walk away for a little bit to get my music career in the space that I need it to be for me to be really happy with what I've done with my life. And radio is also a very special little thing in my life. It's also a major thing in my life. I currently have a radio show where I take different bands and I kind of go through their entire discography. And I get to do weird bands. They gave me a lot of scope with this one, so it's quite fun for me to be able to introduce weird music. Sometimes it's not even weird. Sometimes it's kind of poppy as well. Into the world. I've gotten a lot of cool messages on my Instagram of people hearing my radio show and I've never heard of this band. Thank you for introducing me to them, and that's kind of the moments I live for.
Tourismus Namibia is a weekly tourism show that brings you the latest news in the tourism industry and topics related to that. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact tourismus@synergy.com.na for news and advertising related queries. Tourismus, bring the world to Namibia.
Kykers, baie welkom. Vandag gesels ek met Irene Nel en dit is baie lekker om met haar te sit hier in haar sitkamer, want sy is ook my tannie en dit is ook baie lekker om met skrywers te gesels, want ek skryf graag, né? Irene, baie welkom.
Dankie Jolanda.
Vertel vir ons, jy het nou 'n boek bekend gestel, Die wysheid van Zani.
Zani Beer.
Zani Beer.
Ja,
En
ja.
Zani
En daar
Beer
is Zani Beer.
is ook
Ja,
vandag by
Zani
ons.
is ook hier so.
Vertel vir ons van die boek.
Sjoe, 'n kinderboek. Basies gebaseer op die vrug van die gees, maar nêrens enige godsdienstige woord of so iets nie, dit is mos deesdae verkeerd. En die 22ste behoort ek om te hê in my hand.
En hoe voel jy?
Ja, dis onbeskryflik. Ek kyk hierdie foto's en dan sê Marlene vir my, sy is so trots op hierdie boek en ek kan so trots wees en dis so mooi en ek wil nie die foto's sien, ek wil die boek sien. Want